最初になんですけど、お二人の、ストリームは僕結構見てて、まあ YouTube とかも見てて、特にリアクションめっちゃ面白くて。
I just wanted to mention I watched both of you all's streams and some of your YouTube videos, but man, I love your reaction videos.
Oh no. You're
特に
seeing us at our worst.
特に5.0とか5.3のメインクエストやりながら泣いてくれてるのを見てて、僕も泣いてました。
There were ones where you were going through the 5.0 and 5.3 MSQs, and you're just crying through the story. Oh, I was brought to tears myself.
Thank
Well,
you. Thank you.
いつも
we can't be
楽しい
cool
ストリー
guys
ムありがと
anymore.
うございます。
But yeah, thank you for all the entertaining content you bring to us.
今日はぜひ14のことでもいいですし、ゲーム全体のことでもいいですし、もちろんプライベートのことを質問していただいてもいいので、楽しくぜひやれればと思います。よろしくお願いします。
But yeah, we definitely can talk about 14. But if you wanted to talk about like any other subjects, like games in general or anything like private matters, that's perfectly fine. So yeah, let's just have fun.
All right.
Awesome. Great. Fantastic.
I'll leave it to you guys, and I'll just give you a heads up when we're running a little short on time. But other than that, take it away.
Okay, cool. Yeah, we'll just kind of go back and forth like we were talking about. I'll start, and then Jesse will jump in. So first question, you're 49 days out from release. Are you counting the days? Are you wishing you had more? How are you and the team feeling right now?
ローンチまで49日になりましたけれども、もうなんだろう、楽しみにカウントダウンをしている感じなのでしょうか、それとももっと時間があったらいいのにと願うばかりなのでしょうか、今の心境を教えてください。
このように存在するすべてのゲームディレクターは、おそらくマスターアップの日が近づいてくると、楽しみだなんて思ってるやつは多分一人もいないと思います。
Just to clarify, any game director out there who's faced with like master up or finishing the master build and counting the days to it, I don't think he's ever looking forward to the day.
これはもうなんか寝たいとか疲れたとかそういうことじゃなくて、今本当にもう超巨大なエンドウォーカーっていうそのエクスパンション、まあエクスパンションって言っても本当に RPG1 本分以上の今回も凄まじいボリュームになってるのをもう夜中も通じてずっとチェックをして投資プレイをしているんだけど、もう本当により最高のゲーム体験、最高のストーリーを届けたくて、もっともっとその時間があればもっともっと表現方法を豊かにしたいし、上げられる限界までやっぱりクオリティを上げたいってまさに今思って取り組んでるので、もう1秒でも惜しい。
And I think just any thoughts of like, I want to go to sleep or just tired has already kind of blown away. It's just we are working on this expansion and the volume is that as big as a whole standalone RPG. You know, it's like building an entire new game. So I am still performing checks of the different materials in the game late into the night. I'm still checking through the gameplay and the playthrough so that we can bring you the best gameplay experience, the best story out there. So, you know, if we did have more time, I would still try to rack my brain on how do we make this expression even more interesting and more varied. How do we raise the quality of this game to as high as it can possibly get? So every second is very precious for me.
Are you finding with, you know, you guys announced at the media tour to us today, and in the coming weeks, you'll announce to the public that this is the most profitable Final Fantasy title of all time. Does that add more stress and pressure to deliver the expansion with that news, as well as also being the follow-up to Shadowbringers? Like, have you set the fans' expectations so high that you're worried about that? Or are you just going to put it out there and it is what it is?
今回メディアツアーという形で我々の質問などに対応してくださっているかと思いますが、FF14 という、作品というか、スクエア・エニックスにとっては商品という感じにはなりますので、非常に大きな貢献をしているタイトルだと思います。そのことが、開発にとっての、ストレスじゃないですけれども、この貢献をしなくてはいけないというプレッシャーであったり、あとはその物語の観点からも結構プレイヤーさんの中で、シャドーブリンガーズ、漆黒のヴィランズが、築き上げたその水準というのが非常に高くなっているので、その期待に応えなくてはいけないなどの、プレッシャー違うな。そういった期待がプレッシャーに感じられること、心配されることなどありますか？それとも、もうこのゲームで全力を尽くすので、出したものが出したものだという感じなのでしょうか？
まず会社に対してっていうところは、僕一応取締役なので、普通はプレッシャーに感じるのかもしれないですけど、もう今、皆さんからいただいていて、その会社に対しての貢献っていうのはもう信じられないぐらい大きいので、逆にもう全然プレッシャーとかはないです。もうこれ以上のことをやれる人間が他にいるんだったら、やってみればいいさって思うぐらい、皆さんのおかげですごく自信になってるし、誇りに思ってるので、そこがプレッシャーになるってことは全くないです。
So first off, from a sort of revenue perspective to our company, I actually am one of the board of directors of Square Enix. And so from that aspect, or like bringing in the revenue to the company, is not necessarily a pressure to me at this point. Thankfully, all of our players have been very loyal to us, and so it has allowed for Final Fantasy XIV to make a great business contribution to our company. So from that aspect, I don't feel any sort of pressure. In fact, if anybody can perform as better, if not better than me, I would love for them to try. So I'm very confident in what we bring in Final Fantasy XIV. I'm very proud of this game, thanks to everyone playing this game.
で、シャドーブリンガーズは確かに世界中でものすごく評価をしていただいたし、お二人の配信を見てても、ものすごくエモーショナルに遊んでもらった。それはもう、他のプレイヤーの、ストリーム見ててもそう。それは本当に嬉しいこと。ただ、僕らにとっては、通り過ぎた結果。ただ、その結果も、全力を出し切った結果なので、もうそれを考えても仕方がないと思ってます。
And as for the reception of Shadowbringers from our players, and I've watched you two's stream as well as other players as well, but just watching you guys as well as other players getting so emotional playing the narrative, I think it's evidence of what we were able to bring, but it is something in the past at this point. It is our sort of fruits of our labor, and we did pour our hearts and souls into that full power. But at the same time, we don't want to dwell on it either.
で、今回作ってるエンドウォーカーは、シャドーブリンガーズ2ではない、エンドウォーカーとしての、14のサーガに続く次のというか大冒険なので、当然遊び心地は違う。で、おそらく、ものすごい長さなんだけど、序盤はどうしたんだろう。ものすごく物語が静かなんだけどっていう、ちょっと今までに経験したことのない雰囲気で始まっていく。ただ、進めば進むほど、シャドーブリンガーズとは違った揺さぶられ方をし始めると思うので、僕はそれを皆さんがどう楽しむか、どう反応するかが今とても楽しみなので、プレッシャーってことはないです。僕らにできることは引き続き最大火力で皆さんにエンドウォーカーっていう物語を叩きつけるだけなので、プレッシャーとかいうことはないですね。今までもそうしてきたし、多分これからもそうするだけなので。
And with Endwalker, it's not necessarily a Shadowbringers 2. It is its own sort of narrative as Endwalker, and it is that next saga within that line of Final Fantasy XIV saga in a big adventure. So I'm sure it will feel different as you play through it, and it's going to be quite a long journey you'll be going on. And at the beginning, I know it's going to start out very quietly. So, but once you start progressing, you'll start to feel the emotional parts of it that's different from what you had experienced in Shadowbringers. So I can't wait for the players to and see how they react to that, you guys included. So from that aspect also, I don't think it comes as a pressure. It doesn't feel like we've set any sort of bar per se. All we are trying to do is continue to go at it with as high a DPS as we can and just bring that to our players. And that's what we've been doing up until this point, and we will continue doing moving forward as well.
まあ、
Cool.
今回はもうレベル83ぐらいでとある場所に立ったとき、ちょっと待ってくれよ、まだレベル83だぞ、どうなってんだこれってなると思うので、ぜひ僕ら全力で作ってるので、全力で楽しんでもらえると嬉しいです。
And let's see, once you're at around level 83 and you will set foot in this particular place, and that's one of those surprise elements like, oh my gosh, what's going on? Wait, what's going on? I'm only at level 83. So we are putting it our all to bring this to you. So I hope you guys enjoy it when it does come out.
Fantastic. Yeah, that's a stellar tease. 83. We're going where I think we're going, to say the least. Jesse, I know you had the next question.
Why would you make assumptions about that?
I didn't say anything.
All right. So one last question before we ask you a ton about the future. When looking back at the past 12 years, I think it is now, what is the first thing that comes to your mind when you think about everything that you've been through and you think about the game?
この質問の後に結構将来のお話をしたいと思っていますけれども、まずその振り返ってですけれども、まあおそらく12年ぐらいになるのでしょうか、その14に携わってきた中で、この14というプロジェクト全体を見渡したときに、真っ先に頭に思い浮かぶものがもしあれば教えていただきたいです。
真っ先2個あります。
The first thing that comes to me, is it okay if it's two things?
Sure.
一つは、ファイナルファンタジー14というプロジェクトを、まあ、僕が引き継ぐことになったっていうことを、僕はもともとオリジナルのファイナルファンタジー14の開発には携わってないので、まあ、ただ会社と話をして僕が引き継ぐっていうことになったのを当然全スタッフに伝えなきゃいけない。それを当時会社のビルの近くにあった巨大なモーションキャプチャースタジオに全スタッフに集まってもらって、Say hello って、今日から僕がボスだよっていう話をした時のことはやっぱり思い出されます。
So the first thing is whenever I'm looking at the Final Fantasy XIV project, and I was actually assigned to take over after the failure of the original. So I was not part of the development team for the original launch of Final Fantasy XIV. So whenever we were making that transition, and I was talking with the company, and we needed to introduce myself to the staff, letting them know, just wanted to say hello, I'm going to be your new boss from now. And so we rented out space in this motion capture studio near our office, and just had all of the project team members kind of gather and assemble there. That's the first thing that comes to mind.
200人ぐらいいたのかな ?200 人以上いたのかな
I wonder if it was 200, about 200 people, if not more than 200 people.
フォックスクローンもいたんだよね、そこにね。
Foxconn or Morochi was also there too.
で、まあなんでかっていうと、僕はそれまでずっとドラゴンクエスト側のスタッフだったので、ファイナルファンタジーシリーズを作ってる人たちとはあんまり面識がなくて、まず9割ぐらいの人が、初めましてだったっていうのが一つ。
So the reason why this event comes to mind is I was actually part of the Dragon Quest development team up until that point. And so people who work on Final Fantasy series is a different team altogether. So 90% of the people to me was like first time.
で、まあ、ものすごいやっぱり1.0出来が悪くて、まあ世界中からやっぱりバッシングを受けていて、やっぱり結構僕が壇上から話すときに、もう絶望したような目をしている人、ものすごく疲れた表情をしている人、で、それでもなんとかしたいって思ってる人、本当にその大体3つぐらいに分かれていて、もうなんとかしなきゃっていうふうに思ったのは今でも覚えてます。飛び上がって喜んでたのは初見だけだったんで。
And so with the original Final Fantasy or 1.0 as we call it, again, it was a terrible failure. It was not well made at all, and people around the world were negatively criticizing it. And I had to take the stage to talk to the team members on the development team. And so as I look around, I see different types of people. Some of them look like they were so distraught, like they were hopeless. And then some of them were extremely tired looking. But then there were also people who seemed like they still wanted to have hope and to do something about this. I think those were the general like groupings I noticed. These three groups were what I noticed. And I really wanted to do something about it. I do remember Soken though. He was one of the few people who were like very excited that I was put on board.
で、まあ、やっぱりよくここまで来たなって、あれを思い出すと思います。
So just considering how bleak the situation was initially, I'm just really thankful and humbled by just how far we've come along.
で、もう一個は、2014年、初めてファイナルファンタジー14でファンフェスティバルをやったラスベガス。
And then the second one is 2014 when we had our first set of fan festivals. The kickoff was in Las Vegas.
ものすごい、レジストレーションのマシントラブルがあって、そのファンフェスに参加してくれるプレイヤーの、北米のプレイヤーのみんながレジストレーションにすごい長い待機列ができてしまって、まあ、当時の PR ディレクターから、もうヨシピ外に出てプレイヤーのみんなに謝ってほしいって、ヨシピが謝ってくれればきっとみんな落ち着いてくれると思うんだって言われて、で、謝ろうと思ってその通路に出た。
And so at that time, we were having like technical issues with the registration system. We had like machine troubles, so people couldn't get into Fan Festival. They were having these long queue lines just to get their badges. And so at the time, the PR director who was there at the time approached me. He was saying that we have these really long lines of people, but maybe Yoshi-P, if you come out and apologize to these people, they'll probably calm down. And so he takes me out into the hallway.
で、ところが僕は謝るつもりで外に出たら、気づいてくれた北米のみんながものすごい大歓声を上げてくれて、まあ、歩きながら、挨拶をしながら、レーンをこう、まあ、奥へと進んでったら、16、7歳ぐらいの男の子かな、僕のところに走ってきてくれて、まあ、You are my hero って言われたんですよ。もうこれが一生忘れられない。
So I was expecting to go out and like apologize, just like, oh, I'm so sorry for the wait, long lines, whatever. But as I walked down that hallway and our North American players started to notice, oh, it's Yoshida, it's Yoshi-P, they were so excited. They started cheering and I just went along and I greeted everybody. I was so happy to see them. And so as I went further down the hallway, this young man, I think he was like 16 or 17, ran up to me and he told me, "You're my hero." And that moment just stuck with my heart forever.
That's awesome. Well, that's a beautiful
How you
look back.
follow that, Jesse?
Yeah, I can't honestly. I mean, but I'm gonna try because looking back is beautiful, but I have questions about the future, and I'm very excited to talk about it. So, you've said Endwalker is the biggest one yet. It is this big. It has the comparable size of a standalone RPG with the most story and playable content, and then adding all of the previous content. That is a lot of game to play. As we move on past the Hydaelyn and Zodiark story, what is your expectation for new players who are wanting to experience the story? Are they going to... Would you prefer that they go through A Realm Reborn all the way up through Shadowbringers and Endwalker, and then whatever comes next? Or will there be some way for them to catch up besides going and spending money to skip levels? Or will there... What do you have in store for the future? Have you thought about that much? If you can't give us specifics?
そうですね。次は、将来というか未来の方に目を向けたいと思いますが、今回その行月のフィナーレにおいては、本当にものすごいボリュームになるというふうにおっしゃっていましたし、RPG1 本分のコンテンツである。で、そのストーリーのコンテンツなどなどが含まれますけれども、それに加えて、本当に一からプレイする人にとっては、すべての ARR から始まるすべてのコンテンツがあるので、ものすごい量のストーリーなんじゃないかと感じます。で、ハイデリン・ゾディアーク編という物語がもちろんあるのですけれども、本当に全く新規のプレイヤーにとって、このハイデリン・ゾディアーク編を体験と、その先にあるストーリーを体験してもらうにあたり、やはりどうしても ARR から始まって、シャドーブリンガーズまでの拡張パック、そしてその次の行月のフィナーレ、そしてその後のストーリーに行った方が良いものなのか、それともその新規のプレイヤーに何かしらのその冒険録以外でのその方法でキャッチアップする方法などを考えられる予定でしょうか？
まず正直な気持ちを言うと、僕はファイナルファンタジー14のこうストーリーテリングというか、このストーリードリブン MMORPG っていうのを作ってて、思うんですけど、やっぱテレビドラマシリーズだなと。僕がすごい好きだからなんですけど。
So to be completely honest with you, the way I look at the storytelling of Final Fantasy XIV, and it being such a story-driven MMO, I like to kind of compare it with a TV drama series, and it kind of I'm biased because I love TV drama series.
例えば ARR ファーストシーズンで、ヘブンズワードセカンドシーズンで、ストーンブラッドサードシーズン、シャドーブリンガーズフォースシーズンで、今回一応最初のサーガとしてはファイナルシーズン。
So if you look at it this way, like ARR is season 1, Heaven's Word season 2, Stormblood season 3, Shadowbringers season 4. So this is kind of like the season finale with Endwalker.
で、その 6.1 からは、ニューファーストシーズンが始まるようなイメージでいます。
So with the story moving forward, beyond Endwalker is going to be like a new first season.
でも、やっぱりプレイしていただいてるから、まさにと思うと思うんですけど、シャドーブリンガーズで感じるエモーショナルな部分って、やっぱり ARR から自分自身が主人公になって冒険を続けてきたからこそ感じるものだと思うんですね。
And I'm sure you've noticed this through your gameplay as well, but that sort of emotional moments that you go through in Shadowbringers, I think is possible in part of you playing as the hero from ARR and being that sort of protagonist of this story.
で、まあ、今回が5シーズンだと考えれば、まあ、ゲームオブスローンズを見るよりは多分楽なので、できれば僕としてはファーストシーズンから見てほしい。やっぱり ARR からストーリーだけでいい。メインストーリーだけでいいので、ファーストシーズンから見てもらえた方がより楽しんでもらえるとは思ってます。
So, I mean, considering it's just the fifth season, you know, it's better than trying to sit through all seasons of Game of Thrones, maybe. So, I mean, I would, of course, honestly speaking, I would love for people to enjoy, even if it's just the main scenario. It would be cool if players can experience it from that beginning or like that first season.
で、ただ、さっきお話の出てたストーリースキップを使っていち早く友達とレイドに行きたいからって言って飛ばすことも別に僕は悪いことじゃないと思ってる。まあお金はちょっとかかっちゃうけど、今、その強くとニューゲームっていうシステムによって後でもストーリーをもう一度プレイするっていう機能があるので、そこは自由に考えてもらってもいいかなとはもちろん思ってます。
But that being said, and you mentioned about a story skip or a level skip so that people can be up to date like right away and go into the different raids that their friends may already be playing. And I don't think that's a bad thing. Of course, it will cost you money. So yeah, that's kind of the downside of it. But I think it is an option to kind of skip forward first. And then we also have a system called New Game Plus, where you kind of experience the older chapters, like in sections as well. So you can always go back and experience like previous content.
ただ、こっからまさに課題があるとは思っていて、じゃあこれ以上どんどんこうシーズンを重ねていったとき、いつかはファーストシーズンから見るのが本当に大変になっちゃうじゃんっていうのは、次の課題だとまさに思ってるので、さてどうしようかなっていうのが、今のもちろん、僕の、考えなきゃいけないことの一つの課題だと思ってる。
But you do bring up a good point that it is a lot of content. And if we continue to add more to the existing content, it will get to a point where it is such an arduous journey for our players to get through all of the content starting from the first season. So it is something that is on my mind as a challenge or like an issue that I have to face sooner or later.
で、もう一つはやっぱり特に ARR は僕らがすごい短い時間で作った14のリビルドだし、やっぱり当時の僕らはまだまだ MMO の開発っていうのに慣れてない、僕らもやっぱりこうよちよち歩きだったっていうところがすごくあるので、今見ると拙いところが多い。それはもう演出にしてもそうだし、クエストラインの作り方に関してもそうだし、正直言うともう一回 ARR は嫌いだって意味じゃない。作り直したいっていう思いはある。今の僕らのスキルで。
And I'd also like to add, with A Realm Reborn, that was actually built in a very short amount of time when we were trying to relaunch and rebuild Final Fantasy XIV. So not only was it developed in a short amount of time, we as developers were not very experienced in creating an MMO. So there are a lot of very awkward areas that we would love to revisit, from the cinematic presentations to some of how we structured our quest lines. And I'm not saying that we dislike ARR, but there are elements that we'd like to kind of adjust or like to remake.
まあそこら辺はこれからの将来に向けてのまあ課題だし、いつか超えていかなきゃいけないところかなとは思っています。
But again, it is an issue that we will be facing sooner or later, and we will continue to like make updates and think about it as we go along.
So then, I guess really quickly, speaking of 6.1 in the future, and as you've mentioned before, the next 10 years, does it, I guess the question is, would it benefit you to play through the entire story And in will there still be threads that move from 6.0 to 6.1 and into the future? Will there be a great example is like, does Tataru in the future matter in 8 years from now? Is Tataru still very important to right? Is that something that you definitely need to know who that character is, like that kind of thing?
まあ、とはいえそうですね。ちょっとそれに付随する将来のお話になってくるかと思いますが、まあ、10年、この先の10年を見据えてというふうにおっしゃっていましたけれども、6.1に例えば、入る時点で、これまでのコンテンツを遊んでいた方が、やっぱりより体験が豊かになるというふうにお考えですか？で、そのハイデリン・ゾディアーク編が一旦完結するけれども、その先に続く冒険にまだ、なんだろう、紐がまだつながるようにしていかれるのですか？例えばその8年後にタタルさんが誰であるかを知っていなきゃいけないとか、なんだろう、そういった部分はあったりするのでしょうか？
そうだね。やっぱり、いきなり、まあ、ハイデリン・ゾディアックサーガが完結とは言っても、全くこう見知らぬ別の星に一人ポツンと生かされるとか、一人で旅に出て、これまでの、キャラクターとは誰も会えないっていうわけじゃないので、もちろん。まあ、ぜひ、それはエンドウォーカーのラストを見ていただきたいなとは思うんですけど、ちゃんと、まあ、その先にもワクワクする冒険は待ってそうだなっていう雰囲気はちゃんと作ってあるし、全員とセイグッバイしなきゃいけないわけじゃないので、まあそこはある意味安心してもらいたいかなとは思います。
And of course, with the Hydaelyn and Zodiark saga kind of concluding with Endwalker, we're not going to throw you on like a foreign planet suddenly and you're suddenly left alone to go on a new adventure. So and I think it ties into like the last like the final parts of Endwalker. I hope you get to see it till the end, but it does leave that kind of not lingering, but like that hope for the adventure that will continue beyond that. And it's not like you're going to be saying goodbye to every single person you've met. So
もうタタルだってね、エンドウォーカーの、パッケージではね、ドセンターにいるからね。
I mean, I don't know if you've seen the Endwalker key art, but I mean, Tataru is like front and center. That girl is like very prominent.
一部のコミュニティではタタルラスボス説まであるぐらいですからね。
I mean, some communities have been speculating perhaps Tataru is the final boss.
まあでも、いずれにせよ、やっぱり主人公はね、プレイヤーの皆さん光の戦士であり、やっぱりここまで培ってきた絆っていうものの、まあそう簡単には消えたりはしないので、また楽しくちゃんと冒険できるような新しいその大冒険っていうのもちゃんと作っていこうと思っているので、まあまずは、とはいえその前にね、超絶最大級の戦いが待ってるので、まずはそっちかな。
But in any case, the protagonist of Final Fantasy XIV, of course, is the player, the Warrior of Light. So any sort of bonds or connections that you've made throughout the journey is not something that can easily be broken, I don't think. So while we will be looking to a new adventure moving forward, we still have yet to face the biggest sort of threat yet in Endwalker, and I believe it's going to be one of the most epic battles. So
Fantastic. We're very excited for that. I think kind of switching back to a little bit of what you mentioned during the media briefing video that we saw earlier today. As someone who likes to level all the jobs to max level, there was a bit in there about it being easier to level jobs outside of your main job. Can you give any specifics on what that system is? Will it just be, a flat XP earning system, or is there anything new that's going to be created for that?
ちょっと話が変わりますけれども、プレゼンテーション動画の中で、複 複数ジョブをレベリングするのがしやすくなるというふうな言及があったかと思います。なので、その複数ジョブを、すべてのジョブをマックスまで、カンストまでレベル上げするのが好きな自分にとっては非常に嬉しいお話なんですけれども、もう少し具体的にそのどういうところがそのジョブのレベリングをしやすくなるのかを教えていただきたいです。例えばその経験値がそのなんだろう一定パーセンテージで入ってくるものなのかであったり、何か新しい仕組みが入るであったり、詳しく教えていただけるとありがたいです。
これまでファイナルファンタジー14の、最大の特徴と言ってもいいかもしれない。一つのキャラクターで、あらゆる、クラス、ジョブがプレイできるっていうことは、他の MMO ってどうしても一つのキャラクター、一つのクラスみたいなものが多い中で、何でもできるっていうのが14のいいところでもあり、特徴でもあると思ってます、まず。
Yeah, for sure. With Final Fantasy XIV, I think it's very unique, and I think it's what sets us apart is that you can use your single character to level with any class or job. I know of other games that kind of restrict one character per one class, so I think it sets Final Fantasy XIV apart to be able to level any job that you'd like.
だから、ただ、その一方で、たくさんのジョブがあると、しかもそれが一つのキャラクターでやれると、全部やらなきゃいけないって思う人もやっぱり中にはいて、そうじゃない。僕らとしては、いろんな遊び方、自由な遊び方をしてほしいからこそ、一つだけお願いがある。メインクエストをしっかりやって世界を救ってもらいたい。そのためには、一つのジョブだけでいいから、完走してほしいっていうのが、僕らの元々のコンセプトでした。
But on the other hand, if we do provide many different jobs or classes available, some people get that sort of urge or like an obsession that, oh my gosh, I need to level everything. But we don't want to make it an obligation either. We want people to have the freedom to do what they like and to do what they choose to do. And the one thing that we would ask as developers is just for the players to get through the main scenario quests and save the world. And that can be done with just one single job or class. And so, like, our thinking was that as long as you're able to max out your main job, we are okay with that.
ところが、今、プレイヤーの皆さんのデータを見ると、やっぱり平均でも3つ4つのジョブを普通に完走している人が本当に多くて、いろんなジョブ体験を楽しむっていうプレイスタイルがすごく定着しているっていうのがよく見えます。
But in the years that we've been running this game, we've looked at the player data and we are seeing that on average, each player levels their jobs, 3 to 4 of their jobs to the max, to the level cap. And so it seems like more and more players are enjoying the different content with not just one single job, but like multiple.
で、結果、例えば武器育成コンテンツは、やっぱり僕らとしては1本作ってくれればいいよ。メインジョブの1本作るための時間で計算してたりなんだけど、みんなやっぱり複数を作ろうとする。で、僕らももうそろそろ考え方を変えようと。みんながこんなに複数のジョブを楽しく遊んでくれるのであれば、今まで拡張が出たタイミングって、拡張のメインストーリーとサイドクエストをプレイしていると、ちょうど、ラスボス、その拡張のラスボス近くで、綺麗にレベルカンストするような、EXP デザインになってた、今までは。
So this actually affected, or this we noticed this trend in the weapon quests, where you are farming for materials to kind of power up your relic weapon. And again, the developer's thinking is that as long as you are satisfied with your primary job and having your main arm for that one, and you've created that, we're fine. And our sort of quest design has been calculated so that the time it takes to finish, it's like a satisfactory amount of time for us to create just one of those weapons. But it seems that more and more players want to do it for multiple jobs. And so that led us to think about changing our sort of perspective of it. We thought that, well, it seems like players nowadays like to enjoy doing content with multiple different jobs. So previously, with any expansion pack, whenever you go through the main scenario quests and the sub quests that are associated along the journey, that will allow for your one single job to be leveled high enough to reach that level cap to go into the final boss.
なので、今回はもう複数のジョブをやるのが当たり前になってきたので、メインストーリークエストは、メインジョブで進め、だけメインジョブで進めてくれれば、ちょうどもう、ボス手前でキャップになるように計算して、サイドクエストは他のジョブで遊んでもらえれば、こう、うまく経験値が2つのジョブにこう入っていくようなバランスにしてあるので、よりこう、いろんな寄り道を複数のジョブでしながら、楽しんでいけるような、経験値のバランスに、これはすべて変えてます。
So, with the thinking of players utilizing multiple jobs and that becoming more second nature, we shifted the calculation of how much experience points are being awarded so that as long as you're going through the main scenario quests, MSQs, you should be able to get to that final level cap going into the final boss. And doing the side quests will be kind of extra. If you have a second alt job you wanted to level, you can do those instead and you can gain the experience points. So we've kind of rebalanced it so that you can acquire experience points while you're playing that sort of main scenario quests and any of the sub quests that are in a similar area.
Fantastic. Can you talk about the dev team's internal reaction to kind of the recent boom and general interest in the game that we've seen specifically on Twitch over the past couple of months? And do you watch any of the streamers that have kind of come to this? Asmongold, Rich, I'm sure you've spoken with them as well. Do you watch their streams? Have you watched any of these streams?
そうですね。開発チームの中で、今回急激にプレイヤー数が増えましたけれども、それに対するリアクション、例えばTwitch のストリーマーたちも結構14をプレイし始めている人たちもいるので、おそらくインタビューの中でもアズモン・ゴールドさんであったり、リッチ・キャンベルさんとかとお話になったかと思いますので、こういったストリーマーの方々が14をプレイすることに対する開発の反応であったり、彼らのストリームを実際にご覧になったことはありますか？
まず、プレイヤーが急激に増えているのは、みんな、当然ですけど、自分たちが作ったものを本当に一人でも多くの人に遊んでもらいたいと思って、やっぱり作ってるので、めちゃくちゃ喜んでます、まず。当然ですけど。
I think I do want to say, and this probably comes naturally, but the fact that there is such a boom of new players coming in from a developer who's creating the game, in our perspective, it's just amazing. We're just so happy that so many people are flooding in to play this game that we've built.
きっと給料が上がったり、ボーナスが出たりすることを楽しみにしている人たちいるんだろうなとは思います。
And I'm sure there are those who are excited that because of this influx, their salary is going to be raised, or they'll receive a bonus or something like that.
で、ストリームに関してなんですけど、実は14チーム、普段からプレイヤーの皆さんのプレイしてるストリームを見るのはとても大好きで、とても例えばパッチがリリースされて、レイドレースが始まったりすると、いろんなレイドチームのストリームを開発チームはみんな見てます。
And our developers love to watch streams actually for Final Fantasy XIV, and so they watch on a regular basis. So whenever a patch comes out and then a new raid is implemented, I know players kind of compete for who's going to clear at world first. So the developers get excited too. They watch these different streams of these raid teams to see their efforts on the world first race.
僕もだからトレーラー出したら必ず2人のリアクションも見てるし、やっぱ嬉しいんですよ、それは。みんながどう思ってくれるかなっていうのをすごくダイレクトに知れるので。
And whenever we release a trailer, I actually look out for you too and your reaction videos too. And I mean, it's just such a wonderful feeling, you know? It's like you get to experience people's reaction directly and you get to find out how people feel about what you make.
エンドウォーカーのね、スタートの、
Oh,
っていうずっとね、
and whenever we showed that opening sequence of Endwalker and you guys were just frozen. That
いやだから今回純粋にやっぱり多くのそのストリーマーだったりそのインフルエンサーが14を楽しんでくれてるっていうのは本当開発チームめちゃくちゃ喜んでるしみんな開発のバックグラウンドでそれを流しながら開発に当たってたりするので僕らのやっぱり開発モチベーションというところもすごく上げてもらってるのでとてもありがたいし嬉しいです。みんな喜んでます。
And just simply put, these influencers playing our game just encourages us, and we notice that there are a lot of players out there who stream the content, and the developers are really happy that you guys are enjoying the content. I know some of our developers kind of play somebody's stream in the background as they do their work, so we're very much encouraged, and it is a great motivation boost for us too. So we're very thankful for all of you guys, all the streamers out there.
特になんだろうこう皆さんやっぱりすごくゲームのメカニクスに対して理解がすごくあるのでやっぱり何が良くてどこが特徴でまあこういうところがもうちょっと変わると全然違ってくるよねとか僕らがやっぱりもう開発を重ねて先端に行き過ぎてるから今から ARR をなんか全部クリアしてプレイする、なんか記憶を消してプレイするってわけにはいかないから、今の ARR を皆さんがどう感じるのかっていうのは、すごく参考になるんですね。プレイフィールを語りながら、やっぱり配信してくれたりするので。だから、ものすごく、それによって僕らが改めて気づけることもたくさんある。
And especially with those streamers who play our content, it seems like they really understand the game mechanics and they know like which parts bother them and they come with suggestions too. Like if we were to change this aspect, I think it would play better and things like that, which is a new perspective for us developers because we've already gone through that content and we're already at the very latest part. We've gone to the most cutting edge part of it, so we can't like forget what we've experienced and go back to AR to look at it from a fresh pair of eyes. So players jumping in new and fresh into ARR and just talking about their experience is very it's great help. It's very informative. People like to talk about how the game played and how it felt as they played through, which is very it gives us a new perspective. You know, we notice things that may not have been picked up on unless it was looked at from a very new perspective.
で、これはもちろん日本の例えばストリーマーだったり VTuber のストリーミングをみんなよく見てたり僕もそうだけどするんだけど唯一それこそ北米ヨーロッパでストリームしてる皆さんに僕からどうしてもお願いが1個あって
And with watching these different streams, and I know these are also applicable to like the Japanese streamers and the VTubers out there, there is one thing that the development team, I myself included, would like to implore our North American and European streamers.
YouTube に例えばまとめたストリームをまとめた動画を上げたりするときに、ぜひ字幕機能をオンにしてもらいたい。
And so if you ever upload content to your YouTube, kind of like a wrap up of your streams onto YouTube as like VODs, I would love for you guys to turn on like a closed captioning in Japanese. That would be great.
英語が理解できないスタッフがすごい多いので、 YouTube の字幕機能をオンにしてくれれば、自動翻訳で日本語にトランスレートされるので、あれがあると、よりみんな、皆さんがどういうふうに分析してたり、どう楽しんでくれてるのか、より理解できるんで、ぜひそれをお願いしたい。
I'm afraid a lot of our teammates in the development team do not understand English. So just even the auto closed captioning where it can auto translate to Japanese, that would be very helpful. Like we would love to know like what you guys are analyzing and what the streamers out there have noticed. So your help would be appreciated.
多分ね、日本のコミュニティもね、そうしてくれるとすごいね、見たがってる人たちいっぱいいるんで。
And I'm sure like Japanese community members too are very curious about like how the Western players look at Final Fantasy XIV. So I'm sure they would be interested too.
Of course, we'll share that, and we'll try to utilize that as well. I know we got the 10-minute warning about 10 minutes ago.
Close, maybe one more each.
Okay, fantastic. Yeah,
time is okay on
I think we both kind of have a final question that will be simple enough. This one is actually a question Jesse wanted to ask, but he was too shy to ask it.
What?
He has a theory, Yoshi-P, that you are in fact a primal and that we, the player base, are all tempered. Do you care to comment on this?
これはもともとジェシーが考えていた質問なんですけれども、まあ、プレイヤーの中で、ヨシピーが晩神で、我々プレイヤー、光の戦士は吉田のテンパードなんじゃないかという説が上がっていますが、コメントいただけますか？
まあ、日本でもね、結構言う人はいるんですよ。これだから、14のテンパードはみたいな言い方をする人もいます。
You know, that's funny that you should say that because the Japanese community kind of mentions that too. They're like, "Oh, these people are tempered by the Final Fantasy XIV."
でもね、僕はいつも言ってる通り、皆さんはフレンドであり、同志であり、ファミリーだと思ってるので、あんまりそういうふうには捉えないでほしいなとは思うけどね。
But I always tell people, you guys are my friends, my comrades, and my family. Like, I don't want you to think of me as like a primal.
だから僕は確かにそのファイナルファンタジー14のプロデューサーとディレクターをやってて、まあ14という世界を広げてより楽しんでもらおうとするのがまあ僕の役目だから、ちょっと立場は確かに違うのかもしれないけど、まあこうやって話すとなんとなく感じてもらえるかもしれないけど、僕も単なるゲームが大好きなおじさんで、昔からのゲームファンだし、昔からのオンラインゲーム大好きおじさんなだけなので、もっともっとみんなと本当はフランクにゲームの話がしたいし、14のちょっともうちょっと車同士動けた方がいいよな、分かってねえよな、吉田みたいなことを言いたいし。
And of course, being the producer and director of Final Fantasy XIV, my goal is to continue expanding upon the game and for people to come in and enjoy what we can offer. So the positioning might be kind of different as like any other player, but I mean, I'm hoping that you noticed as we're having this conversation that I'm just as much a gamer as you guys are. I'm just this middle-aged man who loves video games, who loves online games. That's all. I just love to talk about games, and I'm a big fan. And honestly, I would have loved to have just a frank discussion on just video games in general. Like, why can't Black Mage be more mobile, Yoshida? What's going on? Or something like that,
まあ、なので、まあ、今ね、ちょっとコロナパンデミックなので、こうやって、ビデオ越しの、ディスカッションというか、コミュニケーションになってるけど、このパンデミック必ずね、皆さんの努力で終わると思ってるので、次の機会にはね、ぜひお酒を飲みながらね、もっと長い時間、皆さんとゲームの話ができると、僕はもう、よりモチベーションが上がるので、まあそういう日が来ることを願ってます。なので、あんまり 晩神とかいうよりは、友達で面白いゲームが大好きなおじさんと思ってもらえると嬉しいです。
So, I mean, with the pandemic happening, we had to resort to like a video conference in order for us to do these interviews. But once this pandemic is over, I know with everybody's hard work, we're going to get over this. I'm very hopeful that this pandemic will end very soon. But once that happens, I would love to just have face-to-face meetings to just talk shop, like over some drinks or something, just talk about video games and just forget about the time and just talk on end. And I'm really hoping that that day comes very soon. So again, I'm not trying to temper anybody. Just I'm not a primal. Please, you are my friends.
All right. Well, final question. As a gamer, as a friend, as family, when are Lalafell going to be able to sit on the shoulder of other players like Nanamo on Raubon?
訳しますか？これは大丈夫ですか？
いや、なるほどね。それはさ、ララフェルオンララフェルにしたいの？
Just to double check though, when you say like Nanamo sitting on other players, like do you also envision like Lalafell sitting on the shoulder of a Lalafell?
Yes.
Yes.
あ、含むだそうです。
じゃあ、もう一個僕から質問があるよ。
Okay, one more question then.
他のプレイヤーがナナモを肩に乗せてるのは我慢できるの？それを見るのは。
Are you satisfied or not satisfied? Can you take the fact that other players can seat Nanamo on their shoulders?
Another Lalafell can too? Anyone can?
もし、例えば、ナナモ様が、どのプレイヤーの肩の上に乗ってもっていうことですか？
そうです、そうです。だって、いいですか？あなたが肩にナナモを乗せられるようになるとすればですよ。他のプレイヤーもナナモを乗せられるようになるわけでしょ？そうなると、街中にナナモを乗せてる人が現れる可能性があるでしょ？それはありなのかっていう。
And so, like, if you were able to seat the Sultana on your shoulder, and if we allow the opportunity for all of our other players to carry the Sultana on their shoulder, would you get jealous?
No.
なるほどね。そうか。ただな、物理的に、そうか。なるほどね。そんなにいいか。まあ。
そのララフェルが他のプレイヤーでもいいのでララフェルが肩に乗せられるようになるっていうところも含めていかがでしょう？ナナモ様のように他のララフェルを。
なるほどね。物理的にさ、ララフェルの肩ってほぼないじゃん？
But I mean, like, if you consider Lalafells carrying other Lalafells on their shoulder, like, have you seen their shoulders? Like, where's there room for a Lalafell to seat themselves on a Lalafell's shoulders?
In Charlian, there are Lalafell with backpacks. Can a Lalafell strap on another Lalafell like a backpack?
ララフェルの場合はバックパックという感じで、おんぶひもみたいな感じで。
なるほどね。ララフェルストラップで吹いたわ。
That was hilarious, Lalafell strap.
なるほど。まあ、よく出るよね、その他のプレイヤーを乗せたいとかね、そういう話も出るもんね。まあ、そろそろじゃあ本気で考えようかな。フレンドだし、ファミリーだしね。
I mean, yeah, it's not unusual that people have asked, can you have like other players seated on your shoulder? And I have gotten that in the past. So, man, I guess the demand is there. Do we really need to look into it? Perhaps we do. As friend, as family.
まあ、昔はできなかったさ、8人乗りのマウントも今できてるぐらいだから、アニメーションチームが頭抱えながら何か考えてくれることを祈ろう、じゃあ。
I mean, previously we could have never imagined having an 8-person mount, and I mean it's happened with the whale. So, maybe the animation team will come up with something.
For
There you go.
friends. Yeah, for friends and family, I think it's
Yeah, okay.
That's what the tooltip says for friends, for family, for whatever the ability. Yeah, it works.
So
まあでも
Chip
で
says
もまあ
me.
まあでも、まあでももしかしたら、この話を聞いたアニメーションチームは、僕に対して、いや、俺、あなた別に友達でも家族でもないもんって言われるかもしれないね。
I mean, I told you guys that we're friends and family, but when I relay that to my animation team guy, he might be like, well, I don't think of you as family or friend.
いや、嘘。でもね、
I'm
実
kidding, I'm
は、
kidding.
でもね、エモートを作ってるスタッフって、ものすごくプレイヤーのことが大好きで、プレイヤーがいつもどんなそのエモートの使い方してるかなとか、どういうのが欲しいって言ってるかなっていうのをすごくチェックしてるんです、いつも。コミュニティの皆さんの。なので、まあ、その担当者は多分今の話を聞くと、すごい難しいチャレンジになるかもしれないけど、すごい喜んでくれると思うので。
I'm kidding though. With the animation team, especially those who handle creation of different emotes of the characters, they really love the players and they're always checking out the community to see like what kind of emotes have people been playing around with, or if there are any sort of requests for new emotes to come out. So the person in charge of creating emotes, I'm sure if they hear about this challenge of how do we seat a loveable on a player's shoulder, I'm sure they will get excited at the prospect and the challenge that they'll have to face.
Well, that's Jesse's mission now.
Yeah, that's my life goal now is to make this happen.
絶対実現してほしいです。
わかりました。
Fantastic.
Thank
I
you
don't want
guys.
to take any more time. Yeah.
It was an excellent end to an excellent session. So appreciate you guys staying late. I know it's not early
Of course.
for anybody.
Yeah. Thank you guys for also staying late. I know this was the final one, so I'm sure you guys are ready to be done and move forward. So thank you so much.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
both.
まあ、史上最大の物語が皆さんを待ってるので、ぜひ、急がずに、ゆっくり、すべてのダイアログを見るつもりで、ぜひ、エンドウォーカー楽しんでもらえると、とにかくメインストーリーすごいことになってるので、よろしくお願いします。
And we do anticipate this to be like the biggest sort of story in history of Final Fantasy XIV. So I would encourage you to play through it. Don't rush through it. I hope you pay attention to the dialogue that is being said, to the point of like trying to pay attention to all that's going on, because the main scenario is going to have a lot going on. So
ありがとうございました。Thank you.
thank you again
Thank
for your
you.
time.
See you next time.